are supporting this ministry. And Penna, if nothing else, as we go to a break, this is just a great time for people, as we've been broadcasting to them for an entire year, for them to come back and say, we appreciate what you're doing.
You know, a lot of times, yeah, that's true. And a lot of times we are asking people who've been listening for a long time, who have given, to maybe up their gift or, reiterate their support for us. But we also want folks that have never given before, the new donor, the person who appreciates what we do, never really even thought about giving to us. We'd love to see a lot of you get involved.
I know a lot of you are maybe new listeners, and maybe you could be a new donor. So you can also give us a call, 800-347-5151. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Voters need to trust in the integrity of the ballot box. That is why we should enact common sense protections. But in our age of political division, even common sense provisions are sometimes attacked as an attempt at voter suppression and voter intimidation. Fortunately, a new poll found that most Americans, at least in Texas, agree with attempts to ensure the integrity of the vote. The Dallas Morning News provided a summary of the Texas Lyceum poll and found that Republicans and Democrats alike expressed greater than 70% support for 4 key ideas. First, require electronic voting machines to print a paper backup of the ballot. Both Republicans and Democrats supported this provision. Second, automatically remove inaccurate and duplicate registrations from voter list. In this case, 86% of Republicans and 77% of Democrats agreed with this provision. Third, require voters to show a government-issued photo identification to vote. This is where there was the greatest split. Nearly all Republicans approved of this measure, while only 72% of Democrats agreed. Fourth, there should be an automatic updating of voter registrations when people move. To its credit, the editorial board of the Dallas Morning News approved of each of these provisions. They understand that having a printed backup of voting machines makes sense. They also agree we should be cleaning out bad registration information. And they acknowledge that requiring a voter ID has been controversial. But they add that nearly everything in our lives requires an ID, from renting a home to cashing a paycheck to getting medical care. All of us can add many other activities that require an ID. This should not be seen as a major burden. This recent poll reminds us that most Americans endorse common sense provisions in order to have voter integrity. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Once again, 2 Timothy 1:7. That's our theme verse. Penna and Kelly for today. Power, love, and a sound mind. It's been our theme verse all week, but especially today. And for those of you that have been listening to Point of View for a while, we certainly want to encourage you to support this ministry, and you can do so by giving us a call at 800-347-5151. The match is $26,000. People might say, well, how did that come about? A very generous donor said, look, I want to match dollar for dollar what comes in, and this is kind of what we have in the remaining part of the week so that we can actually encourage you to give. So your gift of $1 a day, $30 a month becomes, of course, $600 if you give $50 a month or whatever it might be. And so that $600 becomes $1,200. Or if you instead decide I want to give $100, it becomes $200, and that's on the table. But Penna, you mentioned something just in passing. We recognize this hour, primarily we're being heard in Dallas and Minnesota. We're supposed to be heard in Chicago. As a matter of fact, that's just about ready to happen. They've got the antenna on the top of what used to be called the Sears building. I forget the new name of it. But anyway, and we got stations coming up in Spokane, Seattle, Portland, a couple others this hour. But primarily we're talking to our Dallas audience. Some remember Point of View from the old days, but some of our listeners are just hearing us for the first time. And I want to convert some of our first-time listeners to first-time donors, don't you think?
Yes, and, we love the kind that love to participate on an ongoing basis with a monthly gift because our bills come monthly. That's here. Right. And but any kind of participation is greatly appreciated. And, sometimes people get frustrated because they see things going on in the country and they don't feel like they can do anything. They feel helpless, really, sort of hopeless. And Point of View has such a great reach that really, if you help support us, you are doing something. You're doing something very important because we're heard all over the country. And we're heard by people who actually want to take action. We can encourage you in ways you can take action. So we're very important in many ways. And so if you give to us, you are just becoming a part of that effort. So that's why we want to kind of give you that opportunity today to help.
Yes. And again, we had Jim Dennison here the other day, and he said, it's not like I'm begging for you to help us. I really want you to participate in where God is moving. And we've already talked about some of these very successful things taking place, and we want to give you the opportunity to participate with that. And I thought for just a minute we'd talk with our friend Kelly Shackelford about what I call religious liberty dominoes. Now, the other day, of course, we spent some time talking about how the Bladensburg case has dropped all sorts of other things, including this seal in a particular place in Pennsylvania. I wanted to look at a different one, and that is going back a year ago, we had Jack Phillips. And that decision has had some repercussions or has caused other dominoes to fall. Last month, we had 2 videographers in Minnesota that actually were able to have their religious freedom. And then our good friends there at Breakpoint, we've talked about this the other day, pointed out that just this last week at the Supreme Court of Arizona actually said that these 2 calligraphers with brush and nub actually were not found in violation of the sexual orientation ordinance, and they had their religious liberty. So, Kelly, we're seeing examples in 2 different Supreme Court cases, one which is yours, one by ADF, that when that domino falls, all sorts of other dominoes fall.
Yeah, and there's another one in the middle of all that, which is the same week that we won the Bladensburg Cross case, we also got a decision from the Supreme Court on sweet cakes. Aaron and Melissa Klein saying we're taking the case, we're vacating the bad decision below, and telling them, why don't you have another try at this, Oregon. So that's in the middle of this. So I think all the momentum we're watching with regard to that issue is moving in our direction, and I think religious freedom is going to win out. The big issue with all these wedding vendor cases is all of these vendors that I've seen in every case, I don't care if it's Arlene's Flowers or it's, if it's somebody that's doing calligraphy, it's somebody who's doing videos, it's somebody who's doing cakes. In every case I've seen, the Christian owners serve everybody. They don't say, we're not going to serve you because you're, fill in the blank. They just can't endorse every message somebody wants to give. And that should be something that every American agrees with. And the example I give them is, especially in the wedding cakes, I look at people and say, I doubt there's anybody in this room that would argue that the government should be able to punish a black baker because he won't bake a cake to celebrate the Klan rally. You can serve all people, but you don't have to participate in everybody's message. And that's basic free speech. It's basic free exercise of religion. And I think when we're done with all these cases, we're going to end up with a victory at the Supreme Court. But right now, we're still in the battle. So, and again, people listening right now, would you even hear about these things?
There's
if you don't listen to Point of View, You don't even hear about these. We're going to talk about something in a little bit about one of the big judicial nominations that we're trying to get through, that if we get this through, it's going to flip the Second Circuit. It's going to go from Democrat appointed to Republican appointed. There'll be more conservatives. And Second Circuit's like New York and all the Northeast. And I guarantee you, if people didn't listen to Point of View, they wouldn't know about this. So that's one of the reasons you want to keep Point of View on the air is we're talking about things that are really important to Christians about the future of the country, but a lot of which they wouldn't even know about because they're just not going to be covered in other venues.
I get really excited if I see an article about a First Liberty case in the Wall Street Journal, say, or if I hear Kelly or some other attorney from First Liberty or another religious liberty law firm maybe on Fox, and when you hear these interviews, it's great, but it happens here and there. And you pretty much know that when you listen, especially on Fridays, we really try to cover religious liberty. You will get you get the whole story. We have a long enough program that we can actually delve into the details of things. We can answer people's questions because we're live and people can call in. And I think that's what this is why I've always loved being involved in Point of View, because we have time. We don't have to make it into a soundbite. We can actually cover the issue. And that's not just religious liberty. It's every issue that we're dealing with. We can kind of help you to understand why the biblical position is the correct position and the conservative position and the biblical position often dovetail. And we can unpack all of that. It's the wonderful, wonderful privilege we have of having this airtime. But it takes money to do this.
Well, and let's talk about longevity for just a minute. Penna, you and I have been around for a long time, but neither of us are there when Marlon Maddox started in 1972. But 47 years. And when that was broadcasting, there was a law student hearing about that. And, of course, you were listening to it, and I was listening to it and even participating in it. And there's a sense in which if it's been around for 47 years, maybe we're doing the right thing after all.
I think so. We wouldn't have stuck around that long. And I think another part of it is, we're meeting a need. This need has been there. We've always had these battles. They've just been different. So we meet that need, and then we also can see trends. I mean, you are an expert on discerning trends, but we can see trends, and we can see actually what works in the form of activism. We can see where to look. We can see who to tap. And so, just the longevity, I think, is a real advantage we have.
I was also thinking of the sense of urgency, because we just talked about some of these successes, but didn't the Supreme Court vacate a case of Baronell Stutzman, send it back to the Washington Supreme Court, and they said, no, we're going to do the same thing again. So this is why we are talking about these successes, but if we don't keep going, those successes are going to fade away, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and especially if we don't keep going with getting really good judges on the court. We're at 152 last I looked. I don't know if any were passed through this week. I hadn't checked in the last day or so. I know that a number were announced today.
Yes.
New ones. But there are some key flips, some, flipping a circuit, a federal court of appeals about to occur. And that is really important for the future. That's like, who is going to hand down these decisions for your kids and your grandkids? These are people being placed on the court for the next 30 years. These are lifetime appointments.
Yes. And I might just mention some of those people have worked for you either directly or indirectly through helping with some of the briefs and those kinds of things. So if you want that to continue, and as we just mentioned a minute ago, as Kelly mentioned and Penna did as well, you may just only be hearing about this on Point of View. So people say, well, why should I support you? Well, there's one very good reason. You're not hearing this on even other Christian talk shows, even other conservative talk shows. Most of you probably know that we have 150 plus confirmed appointments to the various courts, the federal court, circuit court, and even 2 on the Supreme Court. But again, you hear that here on Point of View. So as we go to a break, we've got some people ready to take your phone calls. 1-800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Or you can, of course, go to the website, pointofview.net, and we encourage you to be involved. $26,000, every dollar doubled.
All week, we've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kerby's voice and that of his guests and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, I want to talk about abortion and Brett Kavanaugh in the same breath, if we can, in just a minute. But let me just mention, we're in the midst of our Truth Team Week. And as I mentioned just a minute ago, we have a matching fund today of $26,000. Now, we need to get that finished by 3 o'clock today. And it is absolutely essential that those of you that have been listening up until now get involved. I know that so many of our listeners tend to procrastinate, so the day has come. We are to the last day. We need to have you call 800-347-5151. I don't want any of this money to go away. And so, again, you can give us a call, 800-347-5151. We have people in the studio right now, outside of the studio, I guess I should say, in the call room, but we can see them right through the glass, waiting for your phone call. So give us a call, 800-347-5151. Of course, you can go to the website, pointofview.net. Of course, we have Kelly Shackelford, Penna Dexter here. And I thought, as we are talking about these issues, it's just a perfect opportunity for you to call or to go to the website. And the other day, Penna, I mentioned the fact that the Guttmacher Institute, which is one of the former affiliates of Planned Parenthood, released its survey of abortions in America, and this was striking. The lowest number of abortions in this most recent year, which is actually 2017, since 1973. So we are talking about abortions going down. We're talking about the possibility that 5 votes on the Supreme Court could overturn Roe versus Wade. We're talking about the younger you are, the more likely you are to be pro-life. We're also talking about the fact that there are almost 3 times as many pregnancy resource centers as abortion clinics. So if you understand all those facts, you can understand why there has been this, if you will, systematic attempt to go after Brett Kavanaugh this last week. What's your thoughts?
Yes, you can understand it. It's amazing. I don't think the people who pushed and shoved and got Roe versus Wade approved could have realized the movement that they were spawning. And the pro-life movement has been so successful in really changing minds and hearts. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, the media will say different things about why the abortion rate dropped. But one of the reasons is because of these laws that have passed in various states. And that comes from public opinion about abortion pushing legislators. And so you have all kinds of restrictions on abortion that have passed. And that's really a bully pulpit for public opinion, I think. So that's one. And then, why these young people that are becoming pregnant are carrying their babies to term more. That's what these statistics show. And that, again, it has to do with the pregnancy resource centers that have grown up. It has to do with technology and science, being able to see into the womb, knowing that is a human life. And I think it just also has to do with the idea that we are speaking about it. We have been speaking about it, and we're finding ways of convincing people of the rightness of this cause. And, of course, Point of View has been part of that since the beginning.
Well, younger people are more pro-life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing that obviously this is one of the results. I think that one of the sad things of why it's gone down, because it's not a great reason for it to go down, is they're having there's less pregnancies.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that needs to change.
True.
Or else we're going to end up being a culture of death.
Be like Europe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where we can't even replace our own, population. I'm doing my part. I'm waiting to be a grandfather any minute now. So we waiting for my daughter to go into labor. She's now past her due date by a day or two. So we're doing our part in the Shackelford clan and trying to add to that number. But I think it's really important that we continue. I mean, I love the fact a lot of people are down about, it's like this is tradition forever, right? Oh, the younger generation, they're just going to ruin everything, right? They don't have our values, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it's neat to see something where they actually are doing better.
Yes.
The baby boomers are worse on life than the younger generations, and that's a great trend. And we it gives us hope that a lot of things can turn around that maybe are off right now if we just speak the truth and get involved with groups that are working on these things. There's some great groups that are out there, and if you're not connected to one and this is an issue of your heart, I'd highly encourage you to connect to somebody who's working on these. I think the next 10 years are going to be really, really exciting, not only on life, but on religious liberty, on a number of issues, in part because we now have judges on the courts who think it's their job to be judges and not legislators. What that means is a lot of these issues that have been taken away from the people are going to be put in the hands of the people. So, everybody thinks about, what if Roe v. Wade gets overturned? They think that means everything flips. It doesn't. It means that it's now up to every state. It's now up to you. So I think the next 10 years are going to be really, really an exciting time of real, exchange of ideas and battling for what is right and what is true and what is good. And so if you're not involved, now's a great time to make sure you're connecting to groups and getting yourself involved so that you can be a part of what happens.
That's why I encourage you to give us a call, 800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. And I just the other day, last Saturday, I guess it was, spoke for Council for Life on what they call Pro-Life 101. And it was interesting to see the questions from the audience because they were wondering, what would happen next if Roe versus Wade were overturned. And it was interesting. This one individual had sound like a British accent, said, yes, but if we do that, they're going to implement laws where they would then actually put women in prison that got an abortion. I said, well, it's funny. Since we're in the state of Texas, let me tell you, there was an individual in the Texas legislature that actually put forward a bill that actually would have had criminal penalties against a woman. And not only did that bill not even get a hearing, but all the pro-life groups said, no, we do not support that. So we don't even have to guess. We know that the one time something like that was proposed, it didn't take place. And then, of course, if you go back historically, before 1973, if indeed there were penalties, they were always against the abortionist, not against the woman. And so it was interesting. Even in the last Texas legislative session, I had an example to use to answer one of those red herrings that you hear all the time. And so just a good example of the fact that most of the people in the room, I was the old guy in the room, and two or three other people, and June Hunt was there, so I guess technically she'd hate me to say this, but she, I guess, is older than I am. But other than that, everybody else were millennials or younger. Really? And they're all kind of gearing up for what's next because they're already thinking, what's next? Isn't that interesting?
It is, and it really is an incredible, I mean, if you think of what's been going on in our country, again, usually you don't think of things being redeemed in culture, right? Mm-hmm. You think that, well, you can become a Christian and that's how you're redeemed, but the culture's still going right into the pit of hell, you know? And that's what everybody. No, things are actually turning. I mean, the life issue has turned from one generation to the next, and a lot of things are beginning to happen. I'm not saying they're going to be successful. I'm saying there is an opportunity right now that I think most people didn't think they would have in their lifetime. I mean, you just kind of thought, well, we're going off the cliff, we're going off the cliff, we're going off the cliff. And all of a sudden now it's like, wait, we're going the other direction. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be up to us. It's going to be up to the people listening. Are you willing to speak up? Are you willing to stand up? How can you do that if you don't have the information, right? That's why point of view is so important. If you don't listen to this, get the information. So I would just say, I would just challenge people this, if you have never given to this effort and you've just been getting all this information, be a little responsible and make a gift, okay?
Do your part.
Yeah, do that for yourself. And you call the 1-800-347-5151 and make a donation. But do it for other people, because one gift might reach, 500, 1,000 people. Think of the impact you've just had. So I would just encourage people, this is going to be really important the next 10 years, and you're going to get information on point of view on these stations all over the country you won't get anywhere else.
We sometimes say pay it forward, and the reason we say that is you think about the people in the 1980s that were paying it forward so that you or a Jeremy Dice or others were hearing point of view. Think about those individuals right now listening to the program. They have, in a sense, benefited from those just a few years ago that have given to this ministry. And so as you are giving, you're encouraging those future listeners, some of whom maybe aren't even listening to the program today, to get this information. And as you said before, all we could do on the pro-life issue is just pray for our pro-life leaders. I'll pray that maybe we could get a pain-capable bill through or a heartbeat bill through. And, of course, all of them get struck down just about. But there is a possibility very quickly in the future where you're going to need some of this information. And just as we've been giving you information about religious liberty so you can stand for religious liberty in your schools, we want to give you information so you can stand before your state legislature and say, we want to stand for life. So that's why we encourage you to give us a call. That number is 800-347-5151. We've got some people ready to take some phone calls. 1-800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
About the worst criticism you can offer of someone today, especially an elected official or a candidate for public office, is to call them a racist. President Trump gets this all the time, yet the president hardly ever mentions race in his speeches or tweets. It's undeniable, however, that his administration has improved conditions for minorities. The unemployment rate at 3.7% is close to the lowest level in 50 years. Black unemployment is the lowest ever at 5.5%. Also at an all-time low, writes syndicated columnist Star Parker, is the gap between black and white unemployment. The gap averages 4.9 percentage points as far back as we have data. It is now 2.1%. The Wall Street Journal reports that last year, the labor force participation gap between blacks and whites basically disappeared. The last time this happened was in 1972. Star Parker, who is black herself and runs the Center for Urban Renewal, says, "This is good news for everyone except those who are more unhappy that Donald Trump is president than they are happy that blacks are working." In her article, Star Parker references Robert Johnson, founder of Black Entertainment Television and America's first black billionaire. On CNNBC, Mr. Johnson said, "I think the economy is doing absolutely great and is particularly reaching into populations that heretofore have had very bad problems in terms of jobs, unemployment, and the opportunities that come with full employment. So African American unemployment is at its lowest level. Things have also improved for the Hispanic community. As certain presidential candidates complain of inequalities in our economy, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel points to recent jobs reports which reveal that Hispanic unemployment has also reached historic lows. Plus, she says, Hispanic-owned businesses are growing rapidly, more than twice the rate of all businesses since 2012. Tax cuts and deregulation are behind these positive trends. If we're honest about them, the racism critique rings hollow." For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Hi, everybody. Max Lucado here. I want to join the loud chorus of applause and appreciation for Point of View, as well as Christian Radio. The unique voice of this powerful ministry over the airwaves is absolutely essential in this day and age. And so I stand with those of you who support and encourage this powerful ministry. I thank Kerby and for the faithful friend that he's been to me all these many years. May God bless this ministry. Let's stay behind it.
Max Lucado will be with us this Wednesday, I believe, and How Happiness Happens is his latest book, so we'll be chatting with him about that. And while we're giving you a preview of next week, we had Dennis Prager sitting in the chair where Penna's sitting right now, and we taped it, so he'll be on Monday. Actually, it's a taped interview because he wasn't able to be here during the hours we normally broadcast, but just gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the things we're talking about. And Kelly made the real good comment that if we do need to equip you, that's why we have these little booklets. You know, if you join at the $50 a month level, for example, here's one, Making Your Vote Count. That's going to be important, don't you think? Here's one on capitalism and socialism. A lot of young people believe in socialism. You might say, well, I'm just not that political, but I'm concerned about what my kids are doing. Okay, here's one on social media and on and on. Or for Kelly's benefit, we have one on constitutional interpretation, or the one that just came out the other day, criminal justice. We're trying to educate you about the issues. So if you find yourself saying, ooh, I'd like some of those booklets. Well, they will just come automatically to your mailbox every single month. And, of course, in addition to that, you'll receive the Outlook magazine coming to your mailbox, as well as all the emails that come to your mailbox. And, of course, Penna Dexter's commentary, which some of you may have just heard if you were listening on computer, and all sorts of other resources. So that's what we want to do to equip you to make a difference in your sphere of influence.
And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're a long show. We have time to unpack things, but we also like to take things and put them in smaller kind of formats so you can use it. And that's what I love about the booklets that are sent out every month. And so, you know, that's just one way that we don't want to overwhelm, but we want to equip.
That's right. And again, the booklet comes each month. Of course, if you sign up at the $50 a month level, you'll receive this attractive tumbler. It's a Yeti tumbler. Very nice. Keeps hot things hot, cold things cold. And in addition to that, you receive the Outlook magazine. And of course, many of us around the table write for that as well. And I, in just a few minutes, want to hear from some of our listeners what they've said. But Penna, we just didn't finish. We talked about some of the very significant things happening on the abortion front. And we recognize still 800,000 abortions. So, I mean, that's not like we've eliminated it. But we have fewer abortions. But you have some other statistics and figures that we need to put on the table, don't you?
Yeah, this comes from Michael New, who does a lot of research into this. And Family Research Council reported it all yesterday. But first of all, almost 400 pro-life laws have gone into effect during the time frame when this 20% drop happened. So we're getting pro-life laws state by state that are helping. As I said, it's the bully pulpit. And I think one of the really important ones that was passed was parental consent, you know, involve the parents in this. And that's helped cut back on abortions. But also doctors. I mean, they're having trouble now getting abortionists in some states don't even have an abortionist there because doctors don't want to go into this. It used to be different. I remember when I was young and having children and my OB said, yeah, I used to do abortions. I don't do them anymore. I think if a person heard that now, they would be shocked because people who are delivering babies aren't aborting babies.
No.
So that's one is in just the abortion clinics that are going because of some of these laws that are requiring them to be up to standard in certain states. There aren't enough abortion clinics to, anymore. And so a lot of these, it's just kind of disintegrated and going away. And that's kind of what we're after. We would have loved to have seen Roe v. Wade just cut off years ago. It hasn't happened. But other good things are happening, and I think still Roe v. Wade could be overturned.
Now, think in light of what you just talked about what's happening right now in South Bend and what they discovered.
Oh, yes.
And what
bring it up.
What Buttigieg did out there.
Ignored it, basically, for a while. But tell the story.
What you had out there is, you have Gosnell, of course, which was just horrible, closed down. So they tried to open another clinic, and they couldn't. And because when they tried, they said, no, we're not approving this. The state did not. And then they go to court and get approval to do this. And then when they tried to form, essentially a crisis pregnancy center to be nearby, Buttigieg refused to allow them again because here's now this just just horrible discovery of what was going on.
2,400 fetal bodies.
That's right.
In round numbers.
The truth is coming out on this, and I think he's got some real problems on this for what happened. And so, but this is, I think it's amazing, with what Penna was just talking about. We're seeing the evidence of what this issue is about right now. They wouldn't allow there to be the crisis pregnancy center where they could help talk to these women, but they allow this horrible, gruesome place that has now been discovered. So we've got, Gosnell number 2, or maybe even worse, and the truth is distasteful to the other side. They don't want you to see the truth, but this is the truth.
And by the way, we're using some euphemisms. You can look it up and use your Google search to realize how awful this is. Just finding, in round numbers, about 2,400 different baby parts.
It's almost like he was keeping them as trophies.
Yes, and just the kind of thing that you had Dr. Gosnell in the Philadelphia area doing,
right.
And then this one is in South Bend, Indiana, and we know who the mayor is.
Yeah, there's somebody running for president, I think, from South Bend who's using a lot of biblical statements that don't seem to line up with the Bible.
Let's just for a minute encourage you to give us a call, but let's hear from some of our listeners.
Point of View Truth Team.
Thank you for your program. I am a team member, and you have opened my eyes to the truth.
You have a wonderful program. I just want to thank you for being there. It's great.
I just wanted to call in and express my gratitude for the awesome work that you guys have done. I've been listening for about 6 months now, and it's just been something I can hardly miss. Thank you for giving me my daily dose of truth with a biblical worldview. I'd just like to encourage anyone listening that's inspired by Point of View to give what they can. I'm a California millennial and Christian, and I now can say I support Point of View.
Thank you. First of all, let me say I listen to y'all's show every day as much as I'm able. And I really appreciate the topics and conversation that y'all bring to the fore.
I listen to y'all's show a great deal, and I really appreciate what you guys do.
Point of View Truth Team.
Back once again, just a few minutes before the top of the hour, and then we're going to get into all sorts of issues. By the way, we're going to have an action item here as well. Now, the obvious action item is for you to call and to actually join the Truth Team. But a little bit later, we're going to be talking about, can we flip some of these circuit courts? How about the 2nd Circuit Court? How about the 9th Circuit Court? So we're going to give you an action item, and so I would encourage you to be listening. But the only action item at the moment is for you to give us a call. And I see one or two that were on the phones a minute ago, and that means that now the phones are open and ready to take your call. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. We have a $26,000 match. Now, what that means is that if you say, I want to pledge $10 a month, that becomes $20 a month. You say, well, I want to give a gift of $1,000. That becomes $2,000. And that is matched up to $26,000. As a matter of fact, I think we have some other people that will join with us if we ever reach that level. So again, the bottom line is we can match what you pledge right now. 800-347-5151. The website, of course, is pointofview.net. Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford, we've got a lot to cover, and Brad Fisk will join us in just a minute. But right now, every dollar doubled, give us a call, 800-347-5151.
All week, we've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kerby's voice and that of his guests, and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is our weekend edition. Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford, and of course you know what that means. We're going to be looking at a number of issues in the news. One of the articles we posted, which we may talk about a little bit later, about Alabama students defying atheists, but I do want to get into one of the very important issues all week, which we haven't talked about a great deal, because I wanted to hear from our two co-hosts here on the attacks on Brett Kavanaugh, the issue of abortion, but also we'll be looking at the campaign, and Elizabeth Warren seems to be broadening her base, and we'll get into the issue of revising American history and Penna Dexter's commentary here about call them racist. But Penna, okay, let's talk about this. We have a duly approved and sitting Supreme Court justice, and now we're hearing the same kinds of allegations once again in a book that then were repeated and I think misreported by the New York Times. So I'd love to get some of your thoughts. Why in the world are we seeing people going against Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court?
Well, because the judiciary is so important, and especially the Supreme Court, to the agenda of the left. As a matter of fact, they have depended on the courts for decades, really more than a generation, to get their agenda through and to strike down things that are good and wholesome. And so now they're seeing that all going away. As we've talked about, the numbers of judges that have been approved, 2 justices on the Supreme Court, it's a sense of desperation. And I think of 2 eyes. Number one, impeachment. Yes, a lot of the Democrat presidential candidates are saying, go ahead and impeach Kavanaugh. I don't know if that'll happen or not. Yeah. There's one columnist, Mark Thiessen at the Washington Post, who said, go ahead and do it, because it's going to show the left is just ridiculous, and also bring back the distasteful hearings from a year ago. But the other one is intimidation, and I think that's what this is really about, is to say to Justice Kavanaugh and really the entire Supreme Court, beware of what we are going to do to you if you don't if you don't approve our agenda. I mean, they've got things coming up that are going to need court approval. What if they get all their programs in and they've got to pay for them with Elizabeth Warren's wealth tax? It's totally unconstitutional. It's going to need to be approved by a court. What about all the tenets of the Green New Deal? The courts are going to have to be involved there, and they are drawing. And there's a case before the Supreme Court about gun control. There you go. And they already sort of shot, something across the bow. Yeah, heal yourself, court, or we're going to pack you and bring in more liberal justices. So this is, it's war right now. And they have, I just think this is just disgusting. And I don't think it was any kind of an editing mistake that the New York Times published this. I think it was done on purpose. And, we need to call that out.
I was waiting to hear what Penna had to say, and I've also been waiting to hear what Kelly Shackelford has to say.
Well, number one, it's just amazing that the New York Times has devolved to what they've become. I mean, it's embarrassing. I just wonder, are there going to be any journalism schools left where they're real journalists? I mean, the idea that you publish a story attacking a Supreme Court justice because somebody said that somebody else said that somebody else was victimized. That's what we're talking about here. They didn't talk to this attorney. They heard that he told somebody else that this other person was victimized. That, by the way, they know said she doesn't have any memory of ever being victimized in the way they're talking about. I mean, I just can't think of anything, more, baseless than that. But I think Penna is hit the nail on the head. This is not just about Kavanaugh. This is about an attempt to destroy the independence of our judiciary.
Yes.
And you see it with what they're trying to do with Kavanaugh. The idea is, whether they impeach him or not, they've smeared him in public. And so they're trying to get the court to sort of not follow the law, but to do what they want to do, or we'll smear you. Okay? Same time, you've got the gun control case, right? And you've got senators in the U.S. Senate on the Judiciary Committee signing on to a brief saying, if you don't do what the decision we want you to do, we are going to come in and pack the court. If you pack the court, by the way, for people who don't know, there are 9 justices. They're saying if we're elected and we have the Senate and we have the presidency, we'll just add 9 justices to the court, Democrats, and then, well, guess what you've just done? The courts are no longer legal bodies. They're now just political bodies. And so the next person that gets in, they elect another however many they want, and the courts are gone.
Yeah.
And so this is really, really dangerous, what's going on. And the American people need to push back, and they ought to push back with a vengeance, because this is about whether we have the rule of law in this country. That's the difference between other places where when one president leaves, you have an army, you have a war, you have violence over who gets the next. Why do we peacefully transition? Because we believe in the rule of law. And what they're playing with here is very, very dangerous, and people need to be really reticent to engaging any of these type of tactics that we're seeing.
I think it shows you what's at stake. And also all week we've had, of course, Brad Fisk with us as well, and it is part of our truth team. And Brad, first of all, if anybody wondered, should I get involved, is there any sense of urgency? I think that sets the tone very quickly, doesn't it?
I knew about all this going on, but I wasn't thinking down the consequences you just outlined. And that's really destructive. I mean, that could bring chaos and some really bad stuff to our country and it's like we're trying to fix something that's not broken. No. For them, it's broken, but it's not. And we have friends who have been giving all week, and we want to thank you for giving.
Yes.
Twice a year, we take a week, and we just pause for a moment to tell you about an opportunity to help us. We are listener-supported Christian radio. We are absolutely dependent on our listeners to keep us going. It's happened for 47 years. We don't expect this year to be any different. But it's one call at a time. It's one commitment at a time. Calling 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. 5151. We have a $26,000 match on the table from some very generous people to the ministry. But here's the way it works. The $26,000 is outside of our total. We cannot access that money or use it until it's matched dollar for dollar. Then we move that money into our account. But we can't do that unless it's matched. So we're looking for a total in the next 2 hours of $26,000. It's a dollar for dollar match. So if you give a monthly gift of $50 a month, which is what kind of our sweet spot giving point is, it becomes $100 a month. If you give $100 a month, we have people doing that in Century Club, it becomes $1,200 a month, doubled. So we're asking you to please step up and give us a hand. A $10 single gift becomes $20. Any gift, any size, either monthly or single, and it'll make a difference. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. You can give on the website as well.
And again, pointofview.net is a great place to go so that you can get in and get out very quickly. You'll see some of the benefits that come at giving levels. And I'm going to give you an action item in just a minute. But before I do so, the only action item for you right now is to give us a call, 800-347-5151, or the website pointofview.net. Every dollar doubled. We're looking for 5 phone calls during this break. 5 phone calls, 800-347-5151.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Voters need to trust in the integrity of the ballot box. That is why we should enact common sense protections. But in our age of political division, even common sense provisions are sometimes attacked as an attempt at voter suppression and voter intimidation. Fortunately, a new poll found that most Americans, at least in Texas, agree with attempts to ensure the integrity of the vote. The Dallas Morning News provided a summary of the Texas Lyceum poll and found that Republicans and Democrats alike expressed greater than 70% support for four key ideas. First, require electronic voting machines to print a paper backup of the ballot. Both Republicans and Democrats supported this provision. Second, automatically remove inaccurate and duplicate registrations from voter lists. In this case, 86% of Republicans and 77% of Democrats agreed with this provision. Third, require voters to show a government-issued photo identification to vote. This is where there was the greatest split. Nearly all Republicans approved of this measure, while only 72% of Democrats agreed. Fourth, there should be an automatic updating of voter registrations when people move. To its credit, the editorial board of the Dallas Morning News approved of each of these provisions. They understand that having a printed backup of voting machines makes sense. They also agree we should be cleaning out bad registration information. And they acknowledge that requiring a voter ID has been controversial. But they add that nearly everything in our lives requires an ID, from renting a home to cashing a paycheck to getting medical care. All of us can add many other activities that require an ID. This should not be seen as a major burden. This recent poll reminds us that most Americans endorse common sense provisions in order to have voter integrity. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Power, love, and a sound mind, 2 Timothy 1:7, been our theme verse this week. And it is Truth Team, Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford, and of course our good friend Brad Fisk in studio with us as well. And in just a minute, we're going to give you some action items, as we so often do, which is one of the other reasons to support Point of View. We're here to try to educate you, try to equip you so that you can make a difference in your sphere of influence. But also, we give you some action items, and there are some very important court appointments that we're going to be talking about with Kelly Shackelford in just a minute. Before we do, though, the only action item, Penna, is for people to give us a call, 800-347-5151, or to go to the website, pointofview.net. But many people might say, why should I support Point of View?
Well, we're calling this the Truth Team, and, it is, truth is truth, and we used to be able to sort of say what truth is, but the progressive movement is attacking truth on so many levels. I mean, we don't even know what gender is anymore in some cases. So, a radio show like Point of View is able to unpack truth, to broadcast truth, to define what's true and what's not true for people on all these issues that are so important. And so, when this show began back 47 years ago, there weren't that many outlets for radio or television. There were just the major networks. And it's proliferated, and there are many outlets. But I think we've remained true to our original cause, and that is to help people understand the issues that face the culture from a Christian worldview, a biblical worldview. And Kerby, you're uniquely gifted to do that. And so God placed you in this position. You were here with Marlon. Marlon's gone. and you have you've just taken it to another level. And the only way that can continue is with people's help. And so that's what we're asking for today. We take time periodically to really major on our need for people to participate with us financially.
And you've been around long enough to know that we do it with a very small number of people, don't we?
We do. We don't, I think people would be amazed, really, at the reach that we have with the few employees that are here. And we've got, so much talent and people that are so dedicated that they don't demand a lot of money.
You know, what I hear you saying is that it's become ludicrous. I look at the press, the media, the lying that goes on, the fake news, and I look at what people are saying, and I go, where is common sense? What are these people? I mean, they are so upset about the course of elections and things lately, and they're losing their grip, and they're panicking. And you know what? We can counter that. We can keep that going by putting information out there that is biblical truth. It's a way for you to be a part of what's going on. 800-347-5151. This is the last day of our truth team. We need that $26,000 desperately into our total. We can't really leave it out. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net, pointofview.net. Come on, I want to hear from you.
Let me give people a reason, an example. I'm about to give something out that I know we were going to talk about.
Yes.
That I can guarantee they will never hear anywhere else today, but it's crucial. I mean, if you're sitting out there and you care about the future of our courts, and you thought, man, I wish I could have an impact, we're about to give you an ability to have an impact.
Yeah.
Good.
The Second Circuit, which is one of the 11, one of the circuits we have in the country, courts of appeals,
it's right under the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, and it's the northeastern part of our country,
right,
which, as you would imagine, has not been very conservative in the past. It is right now about to flip if the person who's been nominated, his name is Steve Menashe, is able to be confirmed. He is excellent. The only reason he's been attacked, mainly by the left, is because he's really, really good. He's written a lot as a young man, very thoughtful. First they went after him saying he was an anti-Semite. That really didn't work because he's Jewish.
Yes, it didn't work out very well.
They've tried other things, but this is going to be an excellent judge. And nobody's sure, is he going to get through? This is something everybody can do. Everybody has 2 senators. I don't care what state you're from. You have 2 senators. You can call your senator and say, I want to just let you know that I know that you're going to have a chance to vote on Steve Menashe to confirm him as a judge. He would make an excellent judge. You've had Senator Kennedy from Louisiana say, because of the way the hearing went, he's not 100% sure. And so if you're in Louisiana, you could call and say, Senator Kennedy, thank you. I know you care about the courts. This would make a great judge. It would also flip the Second Circuit to a conservative circuit. But
in South Carolina,
South Carolina is considered very key. Tim Scott
yeah,
is considered probably the key vote on this. Again, you can make a difference here by calling your senator on, and this is not just one judge. It's not even just a Court of Appeals judge, which is right beneath the Supreme Court. We're talking about a judge that is going to flip that circuit. So this is how you can affect the future. Steve Menashe will be on the court probably for 30 years. And you can make sure that your children, your grandchildren, probably your grandchildren's children are going to have these type of judges that follow the Constitution, that don't think it's their job to be politicians. They think it's their job to look at the original meaning of the text, the Constitution. This is a big change, and you can actually make a difference on it, and it's happening right now. I mean, there was a call I was on today that said this is crucial. It's all happening right now. Everybody can call their U.S. senator. There's a switchboard number where you just call and you say, I'm from so-and-so. Can you give me my senator? And they will give you your senator. You can Google that or whatever. I'm looking, Kirby's looking it up. But everybody can do that and call. And especially if you're in South Carolina or if you're in Louisiana or maybe Colorado, some of these places where the senators are going to be key. But especially, I think, Senator Kennedy in Louisiana, I'd encourage him. Again, I think he's going to come down the right way, but you got to wait and see. And Tim Scott, those would be two real key ones to call.
So again, just as one action item, in just a few minutes, we'll maybe even talk about something happened in the Ninth Circuit Court. So that would be for everybody in the West Coast. And these are just good examples, Kelly, of some action item that we give on a regular basis. And back to Brad, what we're finding out is a lot of people say, well, what can I do? Well, we're going to give you action items. We're going to give you shoe leather to your concern.
800-347-5151. Our match started at $26,000. We are down to $25,000. So thank you for that. So Kenneth gave us $50 single gift. That is now $100. Okay, I'm going to explain to you how this match works. Somebody gave $100, becomes now $200. Someone gave $50, becomes $100. Someone gave $600, it becomes $1,200. That is the way this works. We can knock this match out in no time if we get full participation. And the way that happens is to pray and obey. Ask what the Lord would have you give and be obedient to that voice. Pointofview.net is where you can give. You can also call us at 800-347-5151. That phone number again, Sir Kerby, is?
And again, 800-347-5151 and pointofview.net. I will give the Capitol switchboard number later. I don't want to confuse people with different numbers right now.
Four lines open right now, so you can get straight in.
800-347-5151. So your first assignment is simply to join the Truth Team. But a little bit later, we'll give that Capitol switchboard number. And we'll give you a fact that you can, I believe our listeners can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can both join the Truth Team, and they can both contact their two senators.
How did they
about
get
that.
this? We're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
this
let's hold it up for just a minute.
I'm going to make a gift so I get this, because I want this.
It's a Point of View tumbler, and again, at $50 a month, you receive, of course, the Outlook magazine. You receive all these little booklets, and each month you'll receive a different booklet in the mail, and then also this attractive Yeti tumbler, and Yeti's a pretty nice one, isn't it, Penna?
That's the cream of the crop.
Yeah, keeps your hot things hot, your cold things cold for hours. So
it's built like a tank.
That's one of the reasons we make that available, just as a thank you gift.
Yes, and guess what? I have another little report here. Am I allowed to give this now?
Sure.
Because the Bowmans in Missouri gave a single gift of $100, and so that means, Brad, that's $200.
That's right. Exactly.
So
that's
we
the way
love
this
the
works.
monthly, but we also.
But monthly, we get to count the entire year. I just thought I'd mention that.
Okay.
So if you give $100 a month, we actually get to count that as $1,200 for the whole year. Yeah. And it doesn't take many people at that giving level to get to the goal of $26,000. It's everybody doing their part. That's what we keep saying because it's true. 800-347-5151. Toll free 800-347-5151. 5151. You can also give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
And again, we have one or two people I can see on the phones, but as we go to the break, we want all those phones to light up.
Yes.
What, 5, 6, 7?
Yes, we got 7 phones.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I see my daughter and my wife are waiting for phone calls, so that's why you need to call. 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. We'll be back, but remember, every dollar is doubled. Give us a call.
All week, we've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kerby's voice and that of his guests, and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again. Don't forget that we are in the midst of our very significant week and the last hour and a half in round numbers of our Truth Team week. And that's why we need to hear from you right now. 800-347-5151. I look into the room there, and I don't think my daughter ever had a chance to pick up the phone. So there is still an opportunity for some of you to call. Don't tell me you got a busy signal, because I see at least one or two that have not been on the phone at the moment. So we need to hear from you. 800-347-5151. Of course, the website is pointofview.net. Kelly Shackelford, Penna Dexter, and Brad Fisk. And we've whittled away some of that, $26,000.
We're down to $24,850 from the original 26, so we're inching along. And that reminds me that there are some people within the sound of my voice right now that, you know what? You could give $1,000. You could give $4,000, $5,000 or $6,000. It's happened before pretty much every time we do this. And that would be an exciting thing to have happen, because every dollar you give up to $24,000 is going to be doubled. So what an incredible way to have your gift be so significantly valued by increasing every dollar anybody gives of any amount is doubled. Dollar for dollar. 800-347-5151. Love to see somebody come along with a $5,000 donation in the next couple of minutes. 8,000. Okay, it's 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. It's the final day, the final hours. Be as generous as you can when you call.
As Kelly Shackelford said, you just heard something a minute ago about Steve Menashe, and I'm going to give you the Capitol Hill switchboard number in just a minute, but I want to give you something to write with. But before we do, let's just come back to this issue for a minute. Why such an attack on Brett Kavanaugh? And part of it has to do with just wanting the court to do their will, but the concern that maybe those that support abortion feel like they're losing. And we have mentioned earlier this week, Penna Dexter, that we have a fewer number of abortions taking place than any time since 1973.
Praise God.
The younger you are, the more likely you are to be pro-life. There are fewer and fewer abortionists. Give us some of those facts and figures. There's a sense in which right now those people that believe that we should always have abortion legal, they're in a kind of a panic mode, and that's one of the reasons why they've come after Brett Kavanaugh, don't you think?
I think they are, and the stats we're talking about, they've been in the news this week, and they come from the Guttmacher Institute, which is Planned Parenthood's former research arm, but they're still, they tend to be pro-abortion, but they tend to be pretty accurate with their statistics. And they say the abortion rate fell by 20% between 2011 and 2017. Since the abortion rate peaked in 1980, the rates have fallen more than 53%. And we can give a lot of reasons for that. The left has its own reasons, but I think one of the reasons is because of the proliferation of the pregnancy resource centers. Another reason is because state after state after state have passed restrictions on abortion, pro-life laws, parental consent, asking abortion clinics to be up to code of other medical surgical facilities, all kinds of things, informed consent laws. And then the sonograms, being able to see into the womb now, the science of it is that this is a life from conception. So all of those reasons, I think, have been behind it. And, it's become such a motivating factor that I think it's a lot of what's behind this next attack on Justice Kavanaugh. Because, and this has even been proven by some statements by her, the attorney of his accuser last summer, Christine Blasey Ford. This attorney, Deborah Katz, she really made a speech just a few months later after the whole, after he was confirmed, and she said that overturning abortion and the threat that it might be that Roe versus Wade might be overturned, quote, is part of what motivated Christine. And then she said, quote, elections have consequences, but he will always have an asterisk next to his name, she said of Kavanaugh, which means she wants the public to question his decisions if they don't go the right way.
Yeah, it means that's the motivation, not the truth. And it means that they want an asterisk. It also means this is an attempt to see if they can bully the Supreme Court into doing
like
not
John
what,
Roberts.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not what the law says, but what do you want to be smeared? Then if you don't, you better do what we want you to do. And so that's what this is an attempt to do, and it's sad. I would point out, though, here we are. This is the week where Point of View is getting its resources together for. It's all through gifts from people who are out there. What's happening now with abortion and a number of other issues, but let's take the issue of life. We are going to see the next 10 years. I mean, everything is in the process of changing. Even if tomorrow they overruled Roe v. Wade, people a lot of times forget it's not over. That just means it's returned to you now. It's up to the states to do what they want to do, and everybody is in their own states is going to be going, what's going on? Well, if you don't get information like from Point of View, you're probably going to be lost.
Yep.
And so if this is an issue you care about, you need to be following it. You need to know what to do. And again, I think the next 10 years are going to be crucial because I think we're going to see dramatic changes, not only on this, on religious freedom, on a number of issues that our listeners care about. And so if you ever wondered, is it now a right time to give to Point of View and to make sure they're on the air, I think the answer is very obvious.
And again, like we said, it's a missed opportunity. We just gave you an opportunity a minute ago. Steve Menashe, and I'll give that number now because I don't want to confuse with the on-air line or the pledge line or anything else, 202-224-3121. You can call. That will put you in the Capitol switchboard. And if you're from South Carolina or you're from Louisiana right now, especially, but I think any of you that wanted to contact your senators, again, 202-224-3121. And people say, what can I do? Well, that's the Second Circuit Court. A little bit later, we'll talk about the Ninth Circuit Court. And Penna Dexter, if people have been reading the Outlook magazine, they've been reading your article about all these courts that have been starting to flip. Third Circuit Court, Second Circuit Court, maybe even eventually the Ninth Circuit Court. I mean, this is significant. And if that continues, it's going to make Kelly
just make his job easier.
Yeah, just get the words out. It'll make his job easier.
Well, that's
make
what
First
we'd love to see.
Easier.
We'd love to see it be easier. You want a friendly court, and when these circuit courts of appeal, they're the last bastion before the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court only takes a certain number of cases. So a lot of policy is decided there.
Yes,
number
at the lower
one.
courts, right, Kelly? I mean, most of it's at the lower courts.
I think last year it was 70 at the Supreme Court and 50,000 at the courts of appeals. So that tells you a little bit right there.
Wow.
So again, these are individuals you've known. Some of these people have worked with you. Some of and didn't Brett Kavanaugh do something in your regard?
Brett Kavanaugh donated time almost 20 years ago as a young attorney with me on religious liberty cases. That one of the guys that was announced today, one of his first cases he ever worked on was a First Liberty case, volunteering his time for religious freedom, and he's now been announced for the Ninth Circuit. They're really not going to like him. He's very conservative in all ways. He's got lots of pictures holding guns and different things. He's a gun enthusiast, but he's also a very strong believer, and so they're going to really come after him, which is, again, another reason why you need to be able to support these good people when they come under these ridiculous attacks.
Ninth Circuit Court, which meets in San Francisco.
That's right.
So, again,
that'll be a little change.
It's going to be a real change. Brad, how are we doing here?
Okay, a little update. We made a little progress on our match challenge. Started at $26,000, down to $24,540, and that will have that cleared up. And we have about an hour and a half to get it done. Yeah. So we got to move real fast on this. A few big gifts would be wonderfully accepted, but that $5, $15 gift is just as valued. It is not the size of the gift. It is full participation. 1-800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Let me just echo what Kelly said a moment ago. Without Point of View, we have a lot of information that we're never, ever going to get from any other place. We've already seen, even now, how the media distorts and lies all the time. They're doing it every day. And we're here with truth with a capital T. You can give at pointofview.net, pointofview.net. We have 5 lines open right now, 800-347-5151. That's 800-347-5151. 51.
Let me just talk about something that you probably haven't heard until you will actually listen on computer right now, and that's Penna Dexter's commentary. Matter of fact, I didn't know some of that because she pulled it from a column by Star Parker, and I didn't know about Star Parker's column until she told me about it. So if you are near a computer, you can listen to her commentary right now. That's another benefit of supporting Point of View. You'll hear Penna Dexter's commentaries, and then we even send it to your inbox on Saturday. Mine go to your inbox Monday to Friday, and hers on Saturday. So you can be listening right now, and we'll be talking about it after the break. And we also, as we go to a break, want you to give us a call, 800-347-5151. We need 4 lines full at the moment. I see some people actually getting some phone calls. 1-800-347-5151. Or, of course, pointofview.net. Every dollar is doubled, and we'll give you a total right after this.
About the worst criticism you can offer of someone today, especially an elected official or a candidate for public office, is to call them a racist. President Trump gets this all the time, yet the president hardly ever mentions race in his speeches or tweets. It's undeniable, however, that his administration has improved conditions for minorities. The unemployment rate at 3.7% is close to the lowest level in 50 years. Black unemployment is the lowest ever at 5.5%. Also at an all-time low, writes syndicated columnist Star Parker, is the gap between black and white unemployment. The gap averages 4.9 percentage points as far back as we have data. It is now 2.1%. The Wall Street Journal reports that last year, the labor force participation gap between blacks and whites basically disappeared. The last time this happened was in 1972. Star Parker, who is black herself and runs the Center for Urban Renewal, says, "This is good news for everyone except those who are more unhappy that Donald Trump is president than they are happy that blacks are working." In her article, Star Parker references Robert Johnson, founder of Black Entertainment Television and America's first black billionaire. On CNNBC, Mr. Johnson said, "I think the economy is doing absolutely great, and it's particularly reaching into populations that heretofore have had very bad problems in terms of jobs, unemployment, and the opportunities that come with full employment. So African American unemployment is at its lowest level. Things have also improved for the Hispanic community. As certain presidential candidates complain of inequalities in our economy, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel points to recent jobs reports which reveal that Hispanic unemployment has also reached historic lows. Plus, she says, Hispanic-owned businesses are growing rapidly, more than twice the rate of all businesses since 2012. Tax cuts and deregulation are behind these positive trends. If we're honest about them, the racism critique rings hollow." For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Hi, this is Lee Strobel, author of The Case for Christ and my new book, The Case for Miracles. You know, one of the best ways that we can grow in our ability to understand why we believe what we believe is to get an ongoing dose of God's truth into our lives. And one of the best ways of all to do that, Kerby Anderson does a tremendous job of giving us a regular diet of evidence, of logic, of God's truth from His Word, so that we can continue to do what 1 Peter 3:15 tells us, to always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks us to give the reason for the hope that we have, and to do it gently and with respect. So I am a huge fan of Kerby. I'm a huge fan of Point of View. I know that you probably are as well. That's why you're listening, and I hope you'll get behind them, support them, so that this ministry can continue on into the future and flourish even more next year than this year.
Our good friend Lee Strobel. And again, just a reminder that oftentimes on Friday we do tend to focus a lot of time and attention on politics, but we also talk about evangelism, we talk about apologetics, we talk about theology, we talk about family, and those are just some other reasons why you need to support Point of View. And all the lines were lit up a moment ago, but now I see some people waiting for the phone to ring. So it's time for you to make them ring once again. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. A match on the table. Brad will give us an update on that in just a minute. But as you're listening, you can also just simply go to pointofview.net and listen as well as make your pledge. Penna, one of the things we always do at this point in our program is we play your commentary. And this one, in large part, was based upon some great material by an individual who's been on the program with us a number of times, Star Parker. But there are some numbers that especially our African-American listeners maybe have never heard for the first time.
That's right. And the reason I brought it up is because, it seems like right now you're called a racist for a lot of things that really would not be defined as racist, but that's all changed in the culture. And it's about the worst criticism you can really give of someone today. So that was kind of the point of my commentary. But Star Parker went on to give some statistics on how well under this administration blacks have done. And she talks about, of course, the unemployment rate, and that's great for everyone. It's only 3.7%. But the black unemployment rate is the lowest it's ever been. And since they've been taking the numbers, cool. It's 5.5%. And also at an all-time low, she says, is the gap between black and white unemployment. People are always talking about inequality. Well, that gap has averaged 4.9 percentage points. It's now 2.1 percentage points. And then when you look at the labor force participation rate, the Wall Street Journal reports that gap has completely disappeared under this administration. So, when you call President Trump a racist and then you see things like this where their lot is actually improved, it sort of gives the lie to that statement. And then going on to the Hispanic community, it's sort of the same story. And one thing that was reported by the Republican National Committee, their stats, that recent jobs reports show that Hispanic unemployment has also reached historic lows, and Hispanic-owned businesses are growing rapidly, more than twice the rate of all businesses since 2012. So, we just wanted to give some, talk about fake news. I think the racism accusations are fake news, but these are the real news.
And we had just the other day on our local program an African-American candidate running for Congress. And I said, it's kind of interesting because you have a man by the name of Robert Johnson, and anybody that knows anything about BET, Black Entertainment Television, he is the founder of that. He's also, I think most people think, was the first black or African-American billionaire. But even though he has supported Hillary Clinton in the past, he's pointed out, again, if I can read from your piece here, that the economy is doing great, and it's particularly reaching into populations that heretofore have had very bad problems. He talks about, again, the African unemployment rate is the lowest ever. Now, I don't harbor any illusions that he's going to come out in support of Donald Trump, but here you have somebody that has always supported the Democratic candidate, was a very strong supporter of Hillary Clinton, but has to say, when it comes to my own community, there's been one president that has done a really good job.
It's amazing. It really is. I think, if you watch these polls now, a number of these polls showing the number of African Americans that are supportive of Trump, I think it's really scaring the other side, which is why you see this really harsh rhetoric and racism and all this, because that would really, it's kind of like, they talk a lot about Texas, and if Texas ever went Democrat, it was like, well, the Republican Party can never win. And I think it's the same way. If you shift the percentages, and by the way, I think this would be so good for, African Americans in the United States. If all of a sudden they weren't sort of, all
assumed,
in one side.
Yeah.
They would now have chips to play.
Yeah.
And So if you went from, 4%, 5% to like 10%, 12%, it would shift everything. And all of a sudden, both parties would have to make sure that Black Americans and their interests are being considered. And so I think what's going on is really unusual. Again, how is it that at the time the guy that's supposedly the racist, that all the numbers are going up for the people that he's supposedly racist against? Because they're looking at what happens and not all the rhetoric. They know where the jobs are. They know, the things that are being done. And so I think this is just really unusual but fascinating to watch what's going on.
I am just compelled because I didn't know this. And I'm thinking of my fellow listeners to Point of View right now. You guys are saying, I know. I didn't know this. had no idea that the statistics were so favorable to the Black community in the latest numbers that you were bringing us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a great illustration of why we're asking you to come and support what we're doing at Point of View. This is the day, this is the hour to come and call. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Thank you for calling. Thank you for continuing to call. We're down to $22,010 of that original 26. It's getting whittled away. We need to hear from everybody, and especially if you have that $1,000 gift you could give a month. That would be awesome if you could do that. 1-800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. It's online. You can give there. Pointofview.net, but give, please.
And again, I'm just looking at gifts from Texas and from Arizona. Somebody's saying, I appreciate, this is why I listen, so I don't get fake news. California, Arkansas, South Carolina, New Mexico, Illinois.
Ohio, Alaska.
There we go. So, and again, one in particular saying, this is why I listen to Point of View. I want to get real news, and so that's exactly what we have. And as we go to the top of the hour, this is the longest break, and I recognize my biggest problem is because Kelly Shackelford and Penna Dexter are so interesting, you don't want to call while they're on the air. So this is going to be the best time for you to call. And so I encourage those of you that have been waiting to the very, very last, time has come. 800-347-5151. We have some people on the phones, but a few are waiting, so I want to fill every one of those phones up, don't you?
That's right. Every single phone right now. I think we have 8 phones total. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. And you can help us solve our phone problem by going to pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. And click right on there. You'll have it done in 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Let's fill every phone. And if indeed that is the case, you'll just be on hold for a second before one drops off. So give us a call right now. 800-347-5151. Every dollar doubled. We'll be right back.
All week, we've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kerby's voice and that of his guests and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Weekend edition, and it's an opportunity once again to hear from Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford. Also have Brad Fisk with us, as of course we're talking about Truth Team Week, but this hour I did want to focus a little time and attention on the election and what is at stake. And so we have a piece that came from The Hill about Elizabeth Warren broadening her base. Also, a piece that we've posted because you are seeing more and more people wanting to revise American history. It's interesting. The New York Times and presidential candidates are both singing off the same song sheet, and that is that this is an evil country. New York Times has its 1619 project, arguing that you don't start America in 1776 with the Declaration, or even in 1787 with the Constitution. You started in 1619 when the first slave was brought to the Jamestown settlement. And then you have Beto O'Rourke making that claim that racism is endemic to America, and that really the history of America is racism and slavery. This is why I wanted you to hear Penna Dexter's commentary recently. And, of course, we got a lot of phone calls because of that, so I certainly want to spend some time talking about those issues. So Penna Dexter, Kelly Shackelford, and Penna, if nothing else, those are some topics that people wonder about. What is the future? And I think part of that might even explain why right now there's a real kind of unease and hesitancy even to give to Christian ministries or give to our program, because there's just a lot of uncertainty about what the future is going to hold.
I would say that's why people should give, because in order to get certainty, we need information, we need truth, so people know the directions to go in. And, right now, of course, we are facing an election in 2020, and, every few weeks you hear a debate among all the people that want to be president that are Democrats, and it's scary to hear what they are proposing. I mean, it's unbelievably scary. It's really a socialist agenda, and you have things like Medicare for all, and a lot of that would involve wiping out people's private health insurance that's provided by their employer. And I don't think there's any other program that unpacks healthcare better than Point of View, because number one, we're conservatives and we know how important the issue is. But number two, we've got Buddy Matthews, who comes in every once in a while, and he's an expert on all facets and forms of healthcare. And we can not only talk about what's wrong with it and how much it would cost, but also some of the free market ideas that would actually work well and, need a chance. And then you have all the parts of the Green New Deal that are so, they would just make us poorer. Here we have a better economy right now. We've got tax cuts, we've got deregulation, things are better. This would turn that all around and more. I mean, much more. And so, things like retrofitting all buildings being required in the whole country, or, banning air travel. I mean, ridiculous proposals that are out there. And then there's the free college proposal, and the, paying off everybody's college debt that they've occurred. There's the wealth tax, which is unconstitutional. And really, people say, well, this only affects the very wealthy. Yes, but when you penalize the wealthy and tax them every year on their pot of money, what you do is you really ruin the economy, and the people who are providing the jobs and starting the businesses and paying you are the ones that are being penalized. So it trickles down. So, I mean, there's so many bad ideas out there, and they can talk about it after the debate every night, and we can talk about it every day for 3 hours here on Point of View.
Well, let's say, you know what this reminds me, and very few point of view listeners will probably remember this, but it's like I was watching the last Democrat debate, and there wasn't a single question on the economy, which is obviously the number one issue that Trump is going to run on. You'd think if you're a Democrat, you'd want to kind of figure out who could answer that question best because the economy's going so well. How do they answer? Not a single question the whole debate. That reminded me, and I don't know if you remember this, but we were on Point of View back, this is way back, when there was a Republican primary, and Fox and some of the even channels that are considered conservative were holding debates. And they asked no questions on any of the cultural issues.
Right.
Nothing on life, nothing on religious liberty. I don't think this was the Trump election. I think this is the one maybe even a few before that. And the only place you would have heard where the candidates really stood on all these issues and what they said was Point of View. And it was a great example to me of the difference from even, a, quote, conservative channel and a Christian worldview channel. And I thought, you're only going to get this from Point of View. You're not going to get this anywhere else. But I bet every Christian who was trying to figure out who to vote for in that primary wanted to know, where do they stand on these moral issues of the day, but they weren't getting it from anywhere else.
Make no mistake, because Point of View is a ministry that's been around for a long time, and this is where truth really does reside, and this is where you need to come to get the news. But you know what? Another truth is we are listener supported. We truly are. We come to you twice a year and ask for some help financially to keep paying the bills. And so we're doing that right now. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. You can also give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. And every dollar you give right now will be doubled up to $19,880. That's our new total. It's dropped nicely. Thank you. $19,880 to go by the end of this hour.
Wow,
okay.
That's fast.
Right. So we need some people with some bigger gifts to come in. In fact, Century Club, $100 a month. $1,200 for the year. We have information on our website. There's an incredible Bible that's like a seminary in a box. Okay, this thing is an amazing resource, and it's available as a free gift at $100 or more per month. $100 or more per month, and that's yours. Please give us a call. 800-347-5151. Could 3 of you check in at $100? 5 of you at the $50 a month level pick up the nice Yeti mug and be a part of the team. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
When we come back from the break, I want to get some comments from both of you about what it might look like if indeed the president is not reelected. But I'm also starting to see, Kelly and Penna, a number of Democrats thinking, I think we can take the Senate. And some of the things that we've said, as you well know, Kelly, are, okay, it's sad that nothing's coming out of the House of Representatives. Not much is happening. It's sort of business as usual, but at least you're getting various judicial nominees confirmed in the Senate. But what happens if that pipeline that you have now been able to identify, I think we're up to 152 confirmations,
That's right.
More to come. Matter of fact, could we make that 153 if we talk again about Steve Menashe? We'll talk about that this hour as well. And others that are coming down the pipeline. What happens if all of a sudden then now you have filibuster and no opportunity to get those confirmed? So that is the case. So we want to have you right now call so that we can talk about that in just a minute. So that number is 800-347-5151. We want a phone blitz. I think we still have 4 lines open. I'd like to see every line filled. If for no other reason, I look out there and there's my daughter waiting. She's not looking at her phone. She's looking at her cell phone. Okay, she should be on the phone talking to one of you.
Yes, Dad.
And so that is the case. I think my wife might be waiting for a phone call. So again, 800-347-5151.
Let's go.
And every dollar is doubled. Make a call. We'll be back right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Voters need to trust in the integrity of the ballot box. That is why we should enact common sense protections. But in our age of political division, even common sense provisions are sometimes attacked as an attempt at voter suppression and voter intimidation. Fortunately, a new poll found that most Americans, at least in Texas, agree with attempts to ensure the integrity of the vote. The Dallas Morning News provided a summary of the Texas Lyceum poll and found that Republicans and Democrats alike expressed greater than 70% support for 4 key ideas. First, require electronic voting machines to print a paper backup of the ballot. Both Republicans and Democrats supported this provision. Second, automatically remove inaccurate and duplicate registrations from voter list. In this case, 86% of Republicans and 77% of Democrats agreed with this provision. Third, require voters to show a government-issued photo identification to vote. This is where there was the greatest split. Nearly all Republicans approved of this measure, while only 72% of Democrats agreed. Fourth, there should be an automatic updating of voter registrations when people move. To its credit, the editorial board of the Dallas Morning News approved of each of these provisions. They understand that having a printed backup of voting machines makes sense. They also agree we should be cleaning out bad registration information. And they acknowledge that requiring a voter ID has been controversial. But they add that nearly everything in our lives requires an ID, from renting a home to cashing a paycheck to getting medical care. All of us can add many other activities that require an ID. This should not be seen as a major burden. This recent poll reminds us that most Americans endorse common sense provisions in order to have voter integrity. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kerby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
Point of View, Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Hey, greetings, everyone. This Lieutenant Colonel retired Alan West, former member of the 112th Congress. I just want to take a few moments to tell you why it's so important that you support Kerby and what he's doing here with Point of View Ministries and all the great people they have here on this team. This is truly an intersection of the culture. It is truly a place where you can have that open discussion about the politics, your faith, and all the things that are affecting our country with the current issues. But it is always from a biblical perspective. And I think that's what makes Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio, and what Kerby brings in his analysis and his assessment so very important. So please continue to support Point of View Ministries, Point of View Radio. What a great ministry. What a great man. What a great team that you have here at Point of View Ministries and Point of View Radio. Make sure that you support them.
Remember the first time we ever had Colonel Alan West in studio? It was at a different studio than we're in right now. And after the break, he went out with his credit card and said, how can I give? And everybody's like, oh, well, not normally having people do that, but that's just a good illustration.
He was co-hosting with us, and then he went out and gave us a gift.
I'm not just going to ask people to give. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to ask people to give until I give. So, again, he's one of those people that has supported this ministry. And, Brad, I look at the phones, and there are a few that are ringing, but there are too few that are ringing. So,
just one right now. So we have lots of room for you at 800-347-5151. It's your turn. 800-347-5151. And we got about another 40 minutes on the match, and it's over.
Yes. Well, again, I want to talk about good news, bad news. Bad news first. What happens if the U.S. Senate goes a different direction. We've talked about already with Penna Dexter a little bit about what could happen if we have a different president in office. Even when things aren't moving very much through Congress, at least you've always said, Kelly, that we got the Senate confirming these individuals that are going to have an impact on your children and grandchildren. But there are some Democrats that are saying, I think we can pick off a senator in Maine and Arizona and a couple other places, and all of a sudden you would have a much more difficult time getting some of these nominees confirmed.
Oh, yeah, it would be a huge difference in the types of judges. I mean, for every president in the past, it's been, who do the senators in that state say is, they want? And it's basically, hey, my brother worked on your campaign and his friend's an attorney, so you need to do this,
Yeah.
And for the first time ever, Trump did something different, which is he ran on this issue and he said, you know what? I am going to fill these courts with judges with a proper judicial philosophy. Said, I know I'm not the expert on this, but Heritage and FedSoc and groups like First Liberty, I mean, we can focus on those and make sure we get people who are not politicians. They're people who say, my job is to follow the law. My job is to look at the original meaning of the statute or the Constitution. We've never really done that before. And we're filling the courts with people. And what's happening as a result of this, which I really didn't think through kind of how this would play out. But what's happening now is I'm finding that our courts, we're moving us back to our original principles, our founding principles that are found in the Constitution.
Yes.
Religious liberty.
Yes.
We're going back to the founding principles, not stuff that was made up in cases 50 years ago in the 60s or 70s. And it's changing our country. So you change the Senate, which is necessary to confirm these judges. You're going to change all the judges, and we're going to go back to sort of our courts becoming politicized. And, it would be sad because we're really doing well. I mean, look at the Supreme Court. Look at what just happened with the Bladensburg Cross. Look at the directions we're going. It's really, I think, a very positive thing in that we're going back to our first principles. I think that will continue unless the Senate does change, and then I think our judges in that whole situation would change. So that's one of the reasons why at First Liberty we're moving so quickly right now. It's like we got to get as many of these good judges through as we can. We got to get as many of these really good cases to set precedent as we can because we don't know what could happen. So it's a real crucial time, and a time definitely that we are really setting the future for our country as we speak.
When you talk about the Senate, also, there's a lot of crazy legislation that the House has been passing that we haven't had to worry about because the Senate will not even take it up or will defeat it. One of the things is the Equality Act, and that is just like a bill that would, the name sounds so great, but it would just codify so much of the LGBT and especially the trans agenda into our laws at the expense of, law-abiding people who have religious convictions and biblical convictions about the issue of homosexuality. And so the Senate, they're not going to pass that. But if we change the Senate, we're going to have that. And that would change a lot that's very important to Point of View listeners. A lot of other legislation, too. So, that's one of the things we try to do is unpack legislation here and inform people about what, because they can, again, get out there in the media and portray it as something good and positive when it really isn't.
So again, that's I want to get an update first of all, and then I want to ask Kelly about some of his key cases.
All right. Well, real quick, we've made some progress down to $18,170 to go, and some more gifts are pending. We have our first for this hour, $100 monthly gift coming. We asked for 5 of those, so 4 more of you checking in at 800-347-5151 at that $100 a month level. And then could there be, I think I asked for 7 or 8 at the $50 a month level, because I really want to give you the Yeti tumbler because it's really cool.
It is
800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. You can also give at pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. But lines are open right now.
Well, Kelly, let's talk about some of the cases you're working on. That's, again, one of the positives because, again, this is one other reason to support Point of View, so they know about the cases. They can pray about those. They can join your insider list and all of that. So talk about what's going on.
First, the Bladensburg Cross decision is like having ripple effects. Like almost every week we're hearing of a new decision that is being reversed. And it's not like just monuments. It's like prayer before legislative meetings. It's all kind, city seals that have a cross on them that were struck down that are now being said to be constitutional. So Bladensburg is having its ripple effects, and it's going to be continuing for a while. That's going to be fun to see that play out in a lot of different areas. But I'd say, the question was sort of what are the three, top cases. It's hard to pick them because we have plenty of them, but obviously the sweet cakes is very important. You got Aaron and Melissa Klein out of Oregon, and we had a really good decision from the Supreme Court saying we're vacating this bad decision below. We're sending it back down to the Oregon courts to say you need to look at Masterpiece, which is about hostility to religion, and you need to redo this. And I think that's a strong sign that we're going to get a victory by the time we're done on behalf of every person of faith who's trying to run their business according to their faith. So
that's huge.
That's a very important case.
Huge.
The second one that's really way at the top of my list would be Coach Kennedy. Of course, Coach Kennedy was fired for going to his knee after a game was over by himself for a 15 to 20-second prayer. This is not only important because what it means for Coach Kennedy and every coach all over the country, but when it got to the Supreme Court, the four conservative justices sent a statement down saying that they were really inviting us to come back and they would like to reconsider this major precedent that has done all this damage to religious freedom over the past 30 years. So we are not only about ready to go back, we got to go through the Ninth Circuit first, but we're maybe going to change, decades of really shackles on religious freedom in this country. And so it's huge. So I don't want to, I could go on. We'll wait till after the break, but there are some really, really big cases out there right now. The next 10 years are going to be transformative for our country. I really believe that. And a lot of it you probably won't even hear about because secular media doesn't care about your faith or about religious freedom or about, the issues that are at the top of your list probably. And so point of view is the only way you're going to hear that information.
And Brad, a good illustration is if you look at the First Amendment, there's the Establishment Clause, and the Bladensburg case is now having this ripple effect. And then when you look at those other two cases you mentioned, that has to do with the free exercise. And if they change that as well, they're going to be writing history books, and they're going to be footnotes in those history books about the legal history. So people are actually hearing history being made even on Point of View.
They are. And you can make history right now, if you would, please, by giving us a call at 800-347-5151. By the way, you do not have to have the money you're pledging today. A lot of people think, well, I can only pledge what's in my pocket. No. This is for the next year. It's a pledge of support for the future. 800-347-5151. We have 5 lines open right now. They're having a party in the other room talking to each other. We got to stop that. Give them a call and put them to work. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Looking for 10 total calls this break.
Also love to hear from some of you that have never given before. We invite some of you new donors to join with us. As you've heard, only about 1% of all the listeners support us, so be one of those that support us. 800-347-5151. Every dollar doubled. We'll be right back.
All week, we've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kerby's voice and that of his guests and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net. or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Final half hour, and of course, this is an opportunity to talk about some issues, but it also means we've still got a very significant hill to climb. Brad, isn't that true?
Yes, but we are down to $17,070. $17,070. That means a couple of you at a $5,000 gift, a few $1,000 gifts, and a whole bunch of $15 gifts, and we're going to get there one call at a time. So give us a call, won't you? 800-347-5151. It's Truth Team Week. We do this twice a year. We are listener supported, and we are coming to you, the listener, for support.
And again, let me encourage you, if you can make that large gift. I know of some of you that I've run into before say, I've always just waited to the end because I want to put you over the top. Well, we're waiting right now, so this is a good time to call. And the other day we did have an individual that we met up in Alaska that gave a $5,000 gift. So I do know some individuals that have been waiting to the end. I'm grateful for some of them giving at the beginning because otherwise we wouldn't be where we are. But Penna, for just a minute, let's talk about why someone should give to Point of View. You've been around for a long time. You first came to work with Marlon Maddox, and you and I have been friends for decades. But again, what would you say to our listeners out there?
Well, I would say, first of all, we appreciate every gift and every giver, and It's really a team. I mean, Point of View has made the decision to call it the Truth Team, and truth is obvious. I mean, we've been talking about it the whole program, but it's a team. It's a team of those of us here who participate and the backup staff, the technical staff, but it's also a team of listeners who consider this to be important. They use the information, and so to give. I mean, if Point of View helps you, why not help Point of View to help you, to help others? And, you know, I really appreciated that one testimony by Lee Strobel because he's all about, you know, sharing the Christian faith and explaining it, and he was once an atheist. So that's part of what happens here is apologetics, and I don't think we've emphasized that so much today, but Kerby, you do such a wonderful job, and you bring in Christian apologists and ministers to speak. But to take your Christian worldview, the Bible, and apply it to the political and cultural issues of the day, I think that's where you'd say we major and we are expert. And not many people can say that they can do that. So we're special, and we're worthy of your support and your help, and we're asking for it today. It's actually crucial. We're coming down to the end of this time of asking, and it's an important time. In fact, it's pivotal, and it helps us make decisions about what we're going to do.
And Kelly has run a ministry, and you know what it's like when you don't know whether the money's coming in, right? Yeah. You've been there a few times, haven't you?
I've never been down to 24 minutes before.
Radio.
That's radio.
That's a little different, and so I would really encourage people. You know, one of the things I was thinking, I'm a supporter of Point of View. I give money to Point of View. And, you know, in addition to all the type of things I do, religious freedom, and, you know, when we talk about how do we, you know, I bet most of the listeners don't listen to a single other thing where they get to have people talk about all the things that are going on today, but from a Christian worldview, which helps you then think, how do I think about this? And that's the whole idea of the roundtable. Get different ideas, but to make sure we hit the Christian worldview, then you can talk to your friends, your communities, etc. But one of the reasons I give is outside of all that, which is that, you know, people hear the truth of the gospel on this station all over the country. And I have no doubt that people's lives are changed because the truth of the gospel changes lives. And people will even come to know the Lord. So I want to see when I get into heaven, somebody say, thank you. Thank you for giving a gift to Point of View, which then allowed me to hear, and that's why I'm here. So that's one of the reasons I give, which is in addition to what we do at the Friday Roundtable. Yep. So there's a lot of, if you want to have an impact, maybe you say, I'm not that great with the evangelism stuff, or maybe I'm not a great apologetics person, but I love listening to Kerby. Well, you know what? You can allow Kerby to talk to your friend, maybe 100, 500, 1,000 of your friends. Mm-hmm. So that's why you get involved on the Truth Team.
Yes, and you know, the gospel affects everything in life. I mean, really, the gospel comes down to the smallest thing in our lives, and it certainly comes down into governments and politics and rulers. And, Kerby is uniquely gifted in bringing all of that together. There aren't that many people in the media that can do that, even have that skill and have studied to do that. So, voting is a Christian stewardship. And I think you can go beyond that and say sharing why you support certain issues or candidates is also a Christian stewardship. Well, we try to equip people to do that. In fact, we have lots of ways of doing it. And, our website does it, but the radio show is key. And so that's why we're asking, because I think we're unique. And if you give to us, you're going to be giving to something very special.
I want to thank you and your ministry for all that you do throughout the earth. It is effectual, and I want you to understand that, because I know you work hard, and I don't think it's any more that you could really do in order to further the gospel. And I want to plead to the listening audience. There should never be a time where your program is lacking of funds. And we as Christians, we should learn to support ministries like yours that is reaching out and shining light into darkness. And I want to ask everybody who are listening, if you want to send $10 a month, send it, because this is why Satan has such a great grip on America and the world, is because the world support their own. They will spend billions of dollars to make sure that they are heard. The Lord is working a great work through Point of View.
Point of View Truth Team.
Jacob issuing a challenge. There should never be a time when Point of View is lacking for funds, and we need those funds right now.
Yeah, I want to challenge the listeners. I just want to ask a question. Are you grateful for Point of View? If your answer is yes, I want to encourage you to call the number 800-347-5151. If you're grateful, then you can call and say, you know what? Whether it's $5, right? I mean,
that's right.
Anything. But if you're grateful, call and follow that. It's kind of like faith. Sometimes we talk about faith, and it's like I always tell people what real faith is. It's not saying, let's say I watch Kerby build some steps up to my second story, at some place. And I said, yeah, I have faith in that, Kerby. And it's like, okay, well, let's walk up. Oh, no, I'm not going to walk up. So my point is, are you grateful? If you're grateful, call 800-347-5151 and make a gift to show you're grateful and you want to be behind this.
Again, that number, good words, good words, 800-347-5151. There are 4 lines available, 800-347-5151. It is the grateful line between now and the top of the hour. Call our grateful line and tell us you're standing with us. You can also go to pointofview.net.
And when we come back from the break, I want to get some of your comments around the roundtable about, is it possible this election could go the other direction? And I'll put some of the numbers on the table right now. Donald Trump won Michigan by 11,000 votes. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump won Wisconsin by 27,000 votes, and Donald Trump won Pennsylvania by 68,000 votes. Now, those of you around the table have been politically active, so you kind of go, wait, those are very small numbers. There's 107,000 votes. That is 0.09% in those 3 particular states. Is he going to win those again? Because Barack Obama won all 3 of those states comfortably. Donald Trump just eked through those 3 states, and that gave him the presidency. So when we come back from the break, I want people to understand we are at a razor-thin margin in the presidential election. I mentioned just a minute ago,
the Senate.
One of the challenges in the Senate right now, that challenger to the Republican in that Senate is actually pulled ahead on the polls. Now, the only poll that counts, obviously, is on November 2020, but I can come up with a scenario by which we lose the presidency, the Senate, and everything. And by the fact that I say we, it means no longer do we have those people that are constitutional conservatives in the judiciary. No longer do we have various protections for conscience protection, all sorts of other issues that we talk about. So when we come back from the break, I want to talk about why we need Point of View to really educate the next generation of voters, some of whom will be voting for the very first time.
I can't wait to hear those answers. In the meantime, our match challenge has favorably improved.
That is
We
good.
are down to $13,410, and we've got exactly 15 minutes to get that done. So about $1,000 a minute. That's the way I'm looking at it. Collectively, we work together as a team, as Penna so well said, and we work for a common goal of meeting the budget that we have set up for this year. 800-347-5151. It's your turn. 800-347-5151. Hey, if the lines get full, you can go to pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net.
And again, we encourage you to do so. Pointofview.net, or again, 1-800-347-5151. Every dollar doubled. Let's light up all the lines.
About the worst criticism you can offer of someone today, especially an elected official or a candidate for public office, is to call them a racist. President Trump gets this all the time, yet the president hardly ever mentions race in his speeches or tweets. It's undeniable, however, that his administration has improved conditions for minorities. The unemployment rate at 3.7% is close to the lowest level in 50 years. Black unemployment is the lowest ever at 5.5%. Also at an all-time low, writes syndicated columnist Star Parker, is the gap between black and white unemployment. The gap averages 4.9 percentage points as far back as we have data. It is now 2.1%. The Wall Street Journal reports that last year, the labor force participation gap between blacks and whites basically disappeared. The last time this happened was in 1972. Star Parker, who is black herself and runs the Center for Urban Renewal, says, "This is good news for everyone except those who are more unhappy that Donald Trump is president than they are happy that blacks are working." In her article, Star Parker references Robert Johnson, founder of Black Entertainment Television and America's first black billionaire. On CNNBC, Mr. Johnson said, "I think the economy is doing absolutely great and is particularly reaching into populations that heretofore have had very bad problems in terms of jobs, unemployment, and the opportunities that come with full employment. So African American unemployment is at its lowest level. Things have also improved for the Hispanic community. As certain presidential candidates complain of inequalities in our economy, Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel points to recent jobs reports which reveal that Hispanic unemployment has also reached historic lows. Plus, she says, Hispanic-owned businesses are growing rapidly, more than twice the rate of all businesses since 2012. Tax cuts and deregulation are behind these positive trends. If we're honest about them, the racism critique rings hollow." For Point of View, I'm Penna Dexter.
Point of View Truth Team. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind.
Again, power, love, and a sound mind, 2 Timothy 1:7. It's been our theme verse all through the week. We're down to the last segment, Brad Fisk. It's time. It is definitely time to hear from everybody.
It is. Okay, here's an update on the match. We started at $26,000. Great progress has been made. We're down to $11,545. Here's the way it works. Every dollar you give, you release one of the dollars out of this match fund. We don't have this match money, not in our bank. It's sitting outside of our account. And once you match it, it goes into the total. So it's kind of like it's being held hostage, and we're waiting for you to pay the ransom. You could look at it that way. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. 5151 or always on the website at pointofview.net.
Penna Dexter, let me come to you for just a minute. 3 different states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. By the way, we have listeners in all 3 of those states. If those go the other way to an Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, whatever, what does that mean?
Well, I think, first of all, it means that the progress that's been made in our economy is going to go away and, as a matter of fact, be reversed because most of their platforms call for reversing the tax cuts. And and plus they're going to spend a lot of money because they've got these huge socialist plans like Medicare for all, for instance. So you're just going to have a very different situation, a different country. And you're going to also have, I think you just look on the moral side of things. You look on the sanctity of human life. The Senate has been a bulwark on those issues, on the LGBT issues, which then curtail the freedom of Christians to operate businesses and, it's schools and public places. There's all kinds of repercussions there. So and then the courts, and Kelly is the expert to talk about that, but it affects all of us. And if it affects all of our lives. And I think this election is going to be key. In those states that you mentioned, some of them are affected by the tariffs. Right. And that whole tariff issue is a work in progress. We don't know how things are going to turn out. So that may have turned some voters that voted for Trump away, temporarily, for instance. Some may be gone. So I think it's important right now for us to stay informed on all the repercussions of all these issues, and we're here to help do that. So please help us.
Let's talk about the Senate. Maine, North Carolina, Georgia, Colorado, Arizona. Those you flip a few of those, Kelly, and all of a sudden you don't have a Senate that is as favorable to some of those judicial nominees, even if the president's reelected. What about that?
It's 53-47 right now. So, you change 3 seats and, you've got a totally different situation. And even with 53-47, like today, what are we talking about? Earlier, we were talking about Menashe and getting him through. We're about to flip the Second Circuit, but it's going to come down to probably a vote.
Yes.
So that's why we're saying, if you're in Louisiana with Senator Kennedy, or you're in South Carolina with Senator Scott, you really need to call them and say, let's make sure we get Menashe through. I sure hope you're supporting him fully. And it would make a huge difference. The progress that we've made in the courts has been unbelievable. But really, it could be reversed over the next, 4 years after that. So the Supreme Court could change again, so it could be either setting the courts for the next 30 years or really kind of reverting back to a lot of things. Look at the decision that just came down in California saying that the Catholic hospital can be sued. This is a Catholic hospital for not doing a sex change. Okay, if that's not a violation of religious freedom, I don't know what is. But California is what you will see nationally if the things were to turn around and you have that change of control.
One other thing, and that is that it's been the situation lately that the White House and the administration has to do a lot of things by executive order because the Congress is not acting on things. And, if we lose, if the right loses the Senate, if the Senate goes more liberal, you're going to have more of that. And once a president then goes out of office, those things, he may do good things, but then they can be reversed by another president. So we need good legislation that protects our freedoms, that protects our economy, that protects our education system and all of those things. And so, it's really important to know those issues so you can know who to support across the country. We're a broadcast that broadcasts to most states in the nation, and we can affect what happens in those states. And that's why we're worthy of your support.
You know, we talk about pay it forward. I mean, your gift today allows us, of course, to actually have Dennis Prager on next week, and Max Lucado, and Matt Staver, and Gene Getz, and all sorts of individuals, and all the other things that are going to happen. And as you pay it forward, you'll help us educate individuals, some of whom have voted now for the very first time, and they want to know making your vote count, how to do that. So those are the kinds of things that we have done for years. Of course, we also talk about evangelism, apologetics, theology, family, anything that affects your faith, family, or freedom are certainly those issues. And so that's one of the reasons we are talking about this, and we do recognize there's a great deal at stake. So I can see a lot of activity here. Those of you watching online get a chance to see behind the scenes. And so what is the total now?
Wow.
We are down to the final $1,655. We've had a huge, just a bunch of calls. We've been flooded.
A lot of gratitude.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's when it started. Thank you. You're right. Yeah. That's when it started.
Everybody's grateful.
So, but listen, I like to finish. I really do. I'm just a finisher.
Let's just blow it out of the water.
$1,655 remaining. So please give us a call. We're not done. We're not done till we're done. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. You can also give online.
Always like to wait. These are the big whales that wait till the end.
This is kind of my style, but let's just not win. I like to just blow it out of the water.
Oh, yeah, I like to go way past. Yeah.
And then it's sort of God spilling over.
That would be good.
And then that'll just allow us to reach more people. I mean, because one of the things I thought of, what would happen, we're talking about the elections, what would happen if Point of View's money dried up? Maybe if you're listening, that station goes away.
Yes, and we have seen some of that.
And that's the difference. But now the opposite is if we have money spill over here, maybe a news station opens up.
Yeah.
Maybe there are people not even hearing this in their community that are about to hear it because of what's going to happen here in the next, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We want every line filled. Please pray and obey. Do what God asks you to do and give us a hand. Won't you? 800-347-5151. That's toll free. 800-347-5151. There's 5 minutes left on the match. $1,655 to go. Come on, let's get it done and go way up and over.
Mm-hmm. That would be good. Let's first of all thank Brad, because he's been here all week. He's coming down here from Colorado. He doesn't work here. He just comes and spends a week with us twice a year.
I do work here when I'm here.
Yeah. He works hard when he's here, but he doesn't live here, and he doesn't work from his office here. But yes, we work him too hard. We, as they say in West Texas, ride him hard and put him up wet. And I want to thank both of you for being here as well.
Well, I didn't know it was going to be so dramatic, but I want to say thank you to all the listeners that have stepped up, and I hope more of you do in these last seconds.
Well, and again, we are still waiting for a few more phone calls. All of a sudden, it dried up. And I think we shouldn't have announced that we were so close, because now I see all sorts of people.
We get so close, and we don't want to die right in front of the finish line.
No. Here's the phone number, just in case you didn't get it
Somebody
yet.
just held up four fingers, so I guess they've got 4 lines open. So that's
right.
What, just as we come to the end of the program here, we will take some more phone calls. So
and you can keep calling, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes, and the website stays open all weekend as well. 800-347-5151. But that website is pointofview.net. pointofview.net.
And again, I hope you will give us a call. Pointofview.net, of course, is the website available. Give us a call one more time, 800-347-5151. I hope you have a great weekend. I want to thank Andrew and Steve for their help behind the scenes. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday on Point of View.
Thank you, Kirby. Thank you, guys.
We've talked about the impact Point of View has on the lives of people across America and around the world. You've heard stories about people who were dramatically changed and used by God to do some amazing things. But not one of these people would have been touched by the program. In fact, none of them would have heard the program without the help of someone like you. Your financial support amplifies Kirby's voice and that of his guests and carries it to every corner of our nation. Because of the generous support of listeners like you, literally millions of people have been impacted by Point of View. Today's the last day of our Truth Team Week and the last day of our matching challenge. There's still $26,000 in the matching fund, but it will only last until the end of the day today. Now is the time to step up and make a difference. And just like the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, God will multiply your gift and touch the lives of more people than you imagine. Take a moment right now to go online to pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's 1-800-347-5151.
Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.